Hello, everybody. We have another GCA movie review here, Lady Madea, and it seems like we have another regular potentially. Mr. Yopops is joining us.
Hello, Yopops.
Hello.
Today, we are talking about Disney's 2025 live action remake of Snow White.
Whoa!
This film introduces Rachel Zegler as Snow White and Gal Gadot as the evil queen. And in this version of the story, Snow White's origin is tied to a snowy night, leading to her name. Following her mother's death and her father's disappearance during a campaign, her stepmother seizes the throne, imposing heavy taxes and conscripting citizens into the royal guard. Snow White, reduced to a scullery maid, discovers the queen's jealousy when the magic mirror declares Snow White the fairest. Fleeing an assassination attempt, she finds refuge with the seven dwarfs in the forest alongside Jonathan, a bandit leader. Snow White confronts the queen, ultimately leading to the queen's downfall and her ascension as the rightful ruler. A couple things different than the original, from what I understand. I've never seen the original. Lady Medea, you've seen the original. What did you think when you walked out of this movie theater?
Oh God. I had a lot of thoughts going through my head, but well, the one thing definitely different was that Rachel Zegler lied to us. I don't know if you guys remember. She said that there is no room for great love. There is no room for romance in that movie. That was back like a year ago, but indeed, there is some romance. There is some love. There is no Prince Charming. You mentioned Jonathan, who is just a common person, and but nevertheless, there is some romance, and she lied about that. So that's a main difference there. That he's not of royalty. Um, what else was different? Like basically everything. Just Rach, just the Snow White herself was different. Let's start with the main point. Snow White was different. The most the dwarfs were different. I guess the only common thing was that there were seven of them. And that's the same in the original one. But and the main difference was that this movie was as unpopular as the original one was, beloved and extremely popular back in the day. So that's my take. Your part.
Okay.
What did
Before we get into your critiques, Mr. Yo Pops, what did you think initially when the movie ended?
Oh boy, you want to know what I think of when the movie ended or when it began? So when it ended, I said, "Thank God this movie's over." All right. When I was watching the movie, I said, "Lord, if you love me now, please let the building collapse on it in and of itself, please, please," because this movie was terrible. It was. I it's been a long time since I've seen the original. All right. If you're talking about the cartoon, the original, the cartoon movie by Disney, I was very young when I saw those movies. I felt that the original animated one was it it assumed the audience was smart enough to kind of watch the movie and kind of get where things were going as far as where the plot was going to go. But with this movie, it felt like they just assumed everyone was an idiot, and they were just kind of like they were literally just kind of it wasn't even like I'm watching the movie and they're literally like just like holding my hand and be like, "Oh, this is what's happening. This is what's happening. This is happening." It's like it didn't feel like I was watching a movie. It felt like I was almost watching like a tutorial on like on Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs or something. It was crazy. And then like, um, my God, was there no like just regular dialogue? They had to sing everything, huh? Like, okay, so that's my initial thoughts. So if you want to get more into this, let's do this.
All right. So my biggest thing, and I'm sure Magda can, back this up. In the original, was it a struggle to get, the love interest out of the dungeon? Was there a struggle there? Because in this movie, it was just like, we need to get him out, and it's super easy, barely an inconvenience.
What do you mean?
Well, in the original, wasn't it a Prince Charming? It was actual Prince. I went and saw it after. It wasn't because in this one, she goes after the guy, kind of essentially. She's going after the guy,
Yes.
and he's not even a prince. It literally the only thing that's like similar is that Snow White is Snow White, and then there's the evil, witch. It's I don't know the male, like the savior part. That's yeah, it was completely. At least that's what I remember. It was nothing like that from.
Yeah. So the original one had nothing to do with the there was no dungeon or anything.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was not. Yeah,
Prince Charming was Prince Charming. He, they met, they spent some time together, they fell in love, and then of course at the end he kissed her, and he basically brought her back to life, just like in this one. Yeah, there was no drama with that. There was no running around the forest and
there's no battle. There's no fucking epic
yeah,
battle.
there was no battles. There was no, there was no a group of rebels or whatever. There was none of that. There was no bandits or whatever you want to call them.
And you gotta remember too, Snow White was already asleep. She had taken the poison apple well into the beginning of the movie because the witch had caught her in the forest beforehand, and then towards the end that's when Prince Charming comes. So like they added a whole bunch of extra stuff in there. I'm sure it's the writer director's creative juices flowing. That's all that is over there.
Yeah, well, that was all baloney.
Mark Webb did this film, and he, from what I understand, is he did not have a say, really. It was kind of Disney just forced him to, throw in there what he wanted. So I kind of feel bad for him in that regard. But one thing I gotta say, it was really weird to me. It's very strange that it would go from like, normal scene to like full on Broadway, like just like that, like the snap. And usually musicals are made to like, show exposition or tell a story in that way, but it didn't feel like that here. The music felt, I'm not saying the songs were bad or Rachel Zegler is bad singing. I'm just saying they felt off in where they were put in the story. Was I the only one who felt that? Did you guys feel that?
I'm sorry. Like I said, I have so much to say. That was my point exactly when I first started the video, was that they were everything was a song. There's only like 5 or 6 parts I could count with my hands. It was just a normal dialogue of like actors acting. The whole damn movie was a freaking song. It was, I mean, even with the musical movie or whatever, there is at least a lot of parts where there's dialogue and there's acting and, like it's just a regular, like a movie. And then they add the music into, like you said, give it the exposition, give it that jazz, but I feel like they didn't do that. And also, they were very on the nose with a lot of like things. And I was like, damn, I thought this was a kid's movie. Like what? It's like, I don't know. I thought there was a lot of like kind of on the nose, things that they were saying in that movie too. So it was kind of, I don't know, it was weird, but sorry, Meg, what do you think, Magda?
Actually, the songs were one of the few things that did not bother me that much in this movie. Like you said, Rachel Zegler is not a bad singer, and I thought she did okay job singing. So it did not bother me at all. They were, like I'm not a big fan of the musical, so I didn't care for it, but it didn't interrupt the movie. Like for example, in Joker, when we went to see that was a night, that was excruciating pain when we had to sit through that one. That one kind of had a good flow with it for me. So I can't say that it was painful to actually watch it that way.
And are we gonna talk about Gal Gadot's like 80s arcade dress that just I don't even know what it looked terrible.
No, she's so pretty. She's obviously she's super gorgeous, but I don't know. She's not the greatest actress.
I thought the crown looked pretty cool. It looked like it was stained glass or some shit. Like towards the end, and the crown that she was wearing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I thought that looked kind of cool, just because like the way they had the light kind of coming off the crowd and stuff. I don't know. I thought the wardrobe wasn't too bad. Well, uh, the wardrobes. I don't know. I think like my issue is it's because a lot of it's all CGI in so like the wardrobe it clashes with the CGI. It just I don't know, it looks off for me. If it was actually set on like an actual like actual set like scene like in an outdoor scenery, I think like the wardrobes would it would kind of float a lot better.
I'm so glad you brought the CGI. Speaking of CGI, what did you guys think about the freaking awful dwarves?
Oh God. Oh my. Okay. Can I just say this? They couldn't get the actual, the thief dwarf. He was the only like actual like little person, the only actual like you know what I mean? Like, but I
I
think that
mean, they
it
were
was
like nightmares-inducing dwarves. I'm sorry, I'm a grown person, but I could see myself waking up in the middle of the night after having nightmares with those creatures. They were awful. They were horrendous. I mean, you either use the real people, real dwarves, or do better job with CGI. I mean, the animals were CGI and they were super cute, right? The little squirrels, the little, the little hedgehog or whatever was there. They were adorable. Why those awful dwarfs? I don't understand that.
Yeah.
Terrible. Terrible.
Yeah. I had a problem telling apart all the dwarves. They all look the same to me because of the CGI. And I hate to compare this to The Hobbit, which is not even a fair comparison at all. But look what they did with their dwarves. They all looked unique. They all had their own individual personalities. So that's what I'm comparing it to because it's really the only other, Hollywood film that has, dwarves that are that prominent. So absolutely embarrassing on Disney's part.
They should have kept this movie animated. It should have just been animated, and they should have never made a live action. And because this is what happens when you make a live action out of animated stuff, it just doesn't meet expectations.
One thing that I want to add that it was doomed from the get-go. From the moment Rachel Zegler opened her mouth and started shitting on the movie. I don't know if you guys remember a year back or a year and a half when she started saying how, this is no longer 1937 or 1938. And, that we have a girl bosses now, and there's, there's no room for romance. There's no room for, a vulnerable, sweet little girls, just, kind of what the original Snow White was. Talking shit about everything. And then, of course, later on, having all her opinions, shitty opinions on other things. That movie was doomed back then. If she did her job, she had one job: promote the movie, talk nicely about it, make sure you are respectful to original movie, and everything would be fine. This movie probably would be a half more successful than it was. I know, of course, they got things wrong. Like, for example, Rachel Zegler being a Hispanic, not your original Snow White that she should have been. But this movie would be probably much more successful because I couldn't just stand her because I already hated her. I already had my opinion, from a year ago. So there was nothing that they could have done to save the movie after the damage that she did.
Yeah, I totally agree. With that said, what do you guys rate this out of 10? Yopops.
There was God. I can't even be I can't even be nice and do like a 2 or 3. This is a straight 1. If I could go lower than 1, it would be lower. It's it doesn't even register. Get out of here. No way.
All right.
Doesn't even deserve a rating.
Fair enough. Lady Madea?
It was torturous, but I'm gonna give it a 3 for the music. I like I said, I really, some of the original songs, like I said, it was nice to hear them. So
okay,
I'm gonna go.
For me, I'm giving it a 1 out of 10 as well because I hated it. My theater was empty. I wanted to walk out, but I obviously stuck around, and I have nothing I can say about this film. I would never see it again. I would not recommend it to anybody. So 1 out of 10. I'm only giving it a 1 because I liked Rachel Zegler's voice. She does have a good voice, regardless of how you feel about her. She does have a good voice. So there's that. But you heard it here, folks. Another GCA movie review. Hopefully we don't get another shitty movie like this the rest of the year. I don't think we will. But yeah, like and subscribe if you're new here. We would love to have you in this community.
Later, guys. Peace.